This
Board of
conference will
Commissioners
now be
meeting.
recorded.
Hi, I'd like to welcome all of you to our Board of Commissioners meeting, May 29th, 2020. This is a special session. It is 2:01 according to my laptop. And I would like to first ask that any member of the public who has logged in to testify to please mute their phone or computer until they're called in. That means everyone online, actually. In the Board of Commissioners, as the governing body, because I'm still hearing a lot of feedback. The Board of Commissioners as the governing body of Clatsop County, all county service districts for which this body so acts, and as the Clatsop County Local Contract Board Review Board is now meeting in special session. Teresa, may we have the roll call, please?
Commissioner Nebaker?
Here.
Commissioner Quila?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Webb? Commissioner Sullivan?
Here. Okay, thank you. It looks like we're all here except for Commissioner Webb, who we expect to join us shortly. Do I have a motion? Any questions? Can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Madam Chair, move to accept the agenda. Commissioner Thompson.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, all those in favor, please, let me do it another way. Any objections, please say so. Hearing none, we'll assume that the agenda has been approved. So we'll move now to business from the public. This is an opportunity for anyone to give a 2-minute presentation for any item on the agenda except public hearings or any topic of county concern that is not on the agenda. Clerk of the board, are there any written comments that are sent in from the public?
No, there were not.
Thank you. Are there any, Clerk of the board, are there any members of the public who have registered to speak?
Yes.
If you have registered to speak, please wait until your name is called, then give your name and address to the record. You will have 2 minutes to speak. And Teresa, can you manage that for us since I am limited with my iPad?
Yes.
Thank you.
Marcus Siddhartha?
Oh, hi, this is Marcus. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. So you have 2 minutes. If you could give us your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Marcus Siddhartha. I live in Surf Pines. The address is 89956 Ocean Drive, Warrenton. Zip code is 97146.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to express some comments about the 60% occupancy short-term rental policy. I own a short-term rental single-family house in Warrenton, and because of the situation last 2 months, we've barely been able to make the mortgage payment because we haven't had any business. Regarding the motion to have 60% occupancy, I can see it being effective in a hotel situation where there are a lot of rooms, but in a situation where we are only a single family household rental, the place has been booked out for the next year through August, where there's been occupancy beyond 60%. So if the concern is bringing a lot of people into the community, what I suggest or motion towards is having 50% of the nights or 60% of the days full rather than limit the number of people. And most people who rent our property are like one single family, so there's no cross contamination or like the spreading of the disease. I think it's probably 2 minutes from me now.
Okay, thank you, Marcus.
Thank you.
Commissioner Solomon, that is the only person who registered to speak.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much for speaking today, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, and good luck with your business. I just got a text from Commissioner Webb that she's unable to get on. Is she on now, or?
I don't see her.
She says she couldn't get on. Maybe we could resend the link again. I don't know. Or
Sure.
tell her to call in.
I think there might be some technical difficulties because Sheriff Phillips is also having some difficulties.
In the past when I've had trouble, if I've called in, I was able to at least listen to the meeting.
I'll send Commissioner Webb an email.
Thank you. Okay, let us move down to the business agenda, which is concerning the extension to the emergency declaration related to COVID-19. County Manager Don Boone, were you going to give a report on this?
Thank you, Chair Sullivan, members of the board. The first item today is a request that your board extend the emergency declaration related to COVID-19. On March 16th, your board declared an emergency through May 1st, and then on April 22nd, the declaration was extended to May 31st. Subsequently, the governor has extended her emergency declaration until July 6th. So what staff is asking is that we extend the county declaration to conform with the governor's, so extend it to July 6th. For all practical purposes, what this really does is just allows us to be in the ready for anything that actually may happen. Some of the ways that the county uses the emergency declaration is to contract mutual aid, suspend competitive bid requirements, redirect county funds for emergency use, and then other measures that are required in our response. So this is really just to be in the ready. It doesn't have any specific restrictions or limitations in and of itself. One of the factors too is that it does make us eligible if there was an opportunity for some further reimbursement from the federal government. So that's the end of my staff report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for the county manager? Okay, hearing none, may I entertain an motion?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Thompson would make a motion to extend our emergency declaration to conform to the governor's July 6th, 20 currently.
Second.
Okay, is that the wording that you wanted, Commissioner Thompson? It's different than the one that about adopting the resolution to extend the emergency declaration through July 6th.
Pardon me, I didn't have it before me. I ad-libbed it. So Chair Sullivan, if you want to correct my language, I'm happy to have that.
County Manager Moore, I'm sorry, excuse me, County Manager Boone, we need to have this correct, don't we?
Yeah, so I'm just going to read what the recommended action is real quick. The Board of Commissioners adopt the resolution extending the emergency declaration through July 6, 2020.
I would move that, Chair Sullivan.
Thank you. Commissioner Aquila, would you second that?
I would.
Okay, so we have a motion to adopt the resolution extending the emergency declaration through July 6, 2020. Do we have any questions or comments among the on the board? Okay, hearing none, may we have the roll call, please, Teresa?
Commissioner Nebaker?
Here.
Commissioner, aye or?
Aye, sorry, aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Aquila?
Aye.
I'll see if Commissioner Webb is on the phone call. Commissioner Webb? Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye. May we have,
We're on the second agenda item now, the emergency order number 2.
all right, that's something I don't have. Okay, here we go. So
Yeah.
I knew there was something left there. All right. So we are now down to the emergency order number 2. That's what I was pondering. County Manager Boone, would you like to give that information on that, please?
Sure, Chair Sullivan, members of the board. As you know, the governor established a reopening framework that the county responded to, where we requested opening phase 1 on May 15th. And the whole premise of her reopening framework was that there would be gradual, methodical reopening of the economy. Because I think, as we all know, that the virus is still here. We still have public health staff that are working every day to do contact tracing, testing, and just all the other public health related functions during a pandemic. But the whole idea is to open the economy slowly. And so the county has been framing our emergency orders to be consistent with the governor's framework. So we've been trying to abide by the same methodology of going slow and being methodical. We have been working closely with the cities of Gearhart, Warrenton, and the city of Astoria as we discuss the issues of lodging, short-term rentals, and camping. Because as you will remember, your board approved a local order in March that restricted those 3 elements to really folks that worked within Clatsop County and for essential workers. And so we've been talking a lot about how do we reintegrate lodging, camping, and short-term rentals, how we can be fair or as fair as we can with all 3 sectors. At the same time, we've been working closely with our state and federal partners, because part of what makes Clatsop County such a tourist attraction is we have amazing state parks, and we have a federal park also with Fort Clatsop. And so we've been working with them, and so they have been coordinating their opening dates with us. And one of the essential factors for all of this is we've been hinging our date to the date that the state eases travel restrictions. So part of it for us is, as long as the governor still had travel restrictions in place, we did not want to really encourage any kinds of activities that would violate her intentions. And so we've been working in partnership with a lot of different entities. We've been partnering with our fellow counties and our neighboring counties as well. And granted, everybody's doing it a little bit differently, but we're all in the same neighborhood when it comes to the actual opening date. As we talk about our strategy, I just want to make it clear that there is a caveat, and the caveat is that we're still going to be monitoring, and the governor's office and OHA will be monitoring the 7 prerequisite criteria, and we just got some additional criteria that they're going to be monitoring as we go into phase 2. And so we're going to be looking at those, and we're going to see what happens. But if those indicators do not trend in a positive way, we will be circling back with our city partners and with other partners, including the chamber, who has also been working with us. We'll be circling back with them and having a conversation about what the next step should be. So this could be a very iterative process, but foundationally, we see opening up on June 5th, and there'll be a 21-day period where we are recommending that hotels, motels, and and the camping is opened at a 60% level. So they have 60% occupancy, and that's for 21 days. We had applied the same methodology to the short-term rentals, but based upon some feedback from the public, we made a slight modification, which your board has and which the board clerk has. And the slight modification is for those smaller short-term rentals that have 5 or less maximum occupancy, applying the 60% factor could really limit what their options are. So what we have said as an alternative is that for those that have 5 or less maximum occupancy, they could be leased at full occupancy, but then for those who have a maximum occupancy of 6 to 8, they would be maxed out at 5. And then for those that are at 9 or more, there would be a 60% maximum. So it's really trying to be consistent with how we are approaching folks, but also trying to be reasonable at the same time. So that's where we are right now. So there's one option is to go with the original proposal, which is just a straight 60% applied to everybody. Or there's that second option, which is a little bit more nuanced for the short-term rentals that just allows the smaller ones to be rented at 100% if they have 5 or less capacity. I've talked with all the city managers. I know that they talked to their mayors, and we have support with all the parties for this. You know, we still know that this is not what a lot of our lodging partners would like. And we're trying to thread the needle about being sensitive to the economic challenges that the community is facing, but to still allow ourselves the ability and flexibility to respond if we start having more cases and having stress on our medical systems. So, you know, my view is we're still not out of the woods yet. And so we have to be a little cautious about how we approach this, but we want to do it in a way that is respectful to the goal of opening up the economy, but still protects public health. So that's my staff report. I want to thank the cities. I want to thank the chamber and our federal and state partners and our county partners for really working with us through this. I think it says a lot about Clatsop County that we can work through even the worst times, which I would categorize these as some of the worst times, and still come out with solid relationships. So that's the end of my staff report.
Thank you, County Manager. I think that was excellent. Appreciate it. Comments from the board? Questions?
Yes. Me.
Commissioner Nebeker?
Yeah, Dawn, so you said the positive way and you mentioned increasing cases. Now, prior it was looking at hospitalizations. Has that changed? Are we looking at if there's a dramatic increase in cases, even if people don't have to be hospitalized? Is that a criteria?
So the seven original criteria are still in place. And so that would be looking at the hospitalization rates and then the COVID-like illnesses. And so those still, and then what they are also, the additional criteria really deal with the contact tracing piece, which we are required to at a minimum 95% of all new cases must be contact traced within 24 hours. And then a minimum of 70% of the new COVID cases must be traced to an existing positive case. And so those are just additional criteria. One other one is that there can be no significant increase in the incident cases of positivity, which actually relates back to the number of folks tested and the percent positive over the numbers tested. So there's some additional factors, and when we send in our letter for phase 2, OHA is going to look at all those criteria as well as the original 7, and they will make the determination on whether the county is ready for phase 2.
And thank you. And do we have an idea if there is a spike in cases due to opening? Do we have an idea how many contact tracers we will need?
Well, so far we have had, we've had outbreaks that have contributed to a number of positive cases, and our staff has been doing all those contact tracings within the county's staffing complement. And so I think that we feel comfortable with our contact tracing capabilities, and we do meet the governor's standards. But if we had a big outbreak, we would be bringing in contact tracing resources from potentially OHA or some neighboring counties, or through the Medical Reserve Corps. And so there are other options for us, and I think we are in pretty good shape. We have an amazing public health staff that's already shown that they can respond to some fairly significant outbreaks for our population size.
Thank you. I know that this is very difficult, and I know this expression has been used. This is like threading a needle with a rope, and our staff is doing very well, and I'm very proud of them. I know this is a lot of responsibility and strain. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any other commissioners that would like to speak? Commissioner Thompson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to indulge in catastrophic fantasies. On the other hand, lodging is certainly a portion of our economy, and it covers a portion of our visitors. It's the uncovered portion of our visitors, the day trippers, and trying to imagine how we'll be able to do contact tracing with floods of people coming in. Help me understand how that's going to work.
So if I can, Commissioner Thompson, for those day trippers, they will likely, if they got ill, would be getting contact traced in their home counties. And so if they're coming from Washington County or from Multnomah County and they're here for the day, I mean, chances are they're going home. And so when they go home, they would be contact traced there. And that doesn't mean that their contact tracers won't be contacting folks within Clatsop County, but they would be doing the actual tracing.
That relieves my mind. Thank you. As to the specific policy decision to make, it's balancing and harmonizing some competing interests. How are we both fair and equitable? I mean, the suggestion from the gentleman who called in that we limit it to a family. How do we define family? It's a squishy kind of definition. We don't want to penalize people unnecessarily. It's been suggested to me that we should let the market take care of lodging response, which seems to me a little bit lacking in accountability for the safety of the public. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Well, what I would say, Commissioner, is that restricting any kind of economic activity has its challenges, and I think that us choosing a 60% number is probably as fair as it possibly could be. Some communities have started at 25%, they've started at 30%, and so I think 60% gives the lodging folks, including the short-term rental folks, at least a start. And I would say that we're talking about a 21-day phasing period. So this, if we find out that we're still in in an okay place where it comes to those prerequisite criteria, then we'll be entering the next phase, which means that they will be able to actually open up, completely. So, I just think we're all in this together, and we're just going to have to kind of play it out. But this is a dance, and we are approaching this differently than other counties. But I think that's okay. I mean, we have 36 counties, we have 36 governing bodies, we have 36 very unique communities who get to decide at a local level what is best. And so at the local level, with the work of the cities, with the chamber, with our other partners, this is what we've come up with that reflects the values of the community, that still respects the businesses and a significant industry in our community, which is the tourism industry, but still allows us to feel comfortable that we're being sensitive to the public health side of the equation.
So considered, thoughtful, balanced, as fair as we can possibly make it. Is that what I hear?
Yes.
Thank you.
County Manager, I have a question about, I just want to make clear that each of these businesses will be adhering to the governor's guidelines for their sector, correct? They're responsible for that end of it.
So yeah, every business is responsible. Our public health staff is developing local guidelines too, and so we will be placing those on our website so that the lodging industry and the short-term rentals can be accessing those. For the campgrounds, they'll be accessing the outdoor recreation guidelines that the state has provided.
Okay, and how will this be monitored? If there are egregious violations, what's the consequences? How does that play out?
Sure, it'll be a complaint-based process, and we'll be working closely with our city partners, and they'll be receiving a lot of feedback themselves, I'm sure. And so as for the county piece, if we get a complaint in the unincorporated area, we will be having our code enforcement officers follow up, and we will discuss with the owners or the lodging operation, and we will work towards gaining compliance. This is a 21-day period, and so we hope that people can comply as much as possible for 21 days. The entire notion through this pandemic has been voluntary compliance, and it worked really well when folks still feared the virus, and it's becoming more difficult as they don't fear it. And so, and I don't think that's going to get easier as we go forward. And so, so that's going to be a challenge, but we are prepared to send out letters to our short-term rental licensed operators, and we will communicate with the campgrounds and the other lodging, and we'll do everything we can to really help them successfully comply.
And I hope that the messaging will continue on all fronts, that this is still a very dangerous virus. And even though we are more familiar with COVID-19 and the reality of it, our community has not been hit in the way other communities have been hit. And it doesn't make this virus is still extremely dangerous and to be taken very seriously.
If I could just add, Commissioner, is that, we are the only county that is taking this kind of incremental approach. And I think it really is because we don't know exactly what we're going to get as we return back to more of a normal state. And because that normal state for us during the summer is that our population grows exponentially. And so, so we're going to see what that new normal is. And I think at least we will have the information to then decide what the next step is, whether that is to expand beyond 60% or whether that's to reevaluate 60%. So it's kind of a pivot point for us, and that pivot point will lead us in one direction or the other based upon how the metrics look.
So all along, we will be keeping our eye on this, and if we need to come back together and discuss other options, that's always on the table.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner Webb has a question.
Welcome, Commissioner Webb.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I just couldn't get on no matter what I did.
That's okay.
But back to the issue of the contact tracing. I think one of the things that I have the most angst about are the day trippers whom we have no information about. And who come in, and especially given the fact that Cannon Beach and Seaside have chosen their own path, and yet it is our Public Works Department which is responsible for the consequences of their, what I think are irresponsible actions. So what happens if someone in Multnomah County tests positive? And in Multnomah County's tracing, they say, oh, well, we went to the coast. And then the tracer says, well, who did you have contact with at the coast? How in the world can we ever address that tracing issue? If someone has gotten a gelato in one place and a pizza in another, and maybe you won't even remember the name of the establishment that they frequented, that's a burden on our contact tracers.
Well, Dr. McNichol is on the line. I'll see if he wants to take that on. Dr. McNichol?
Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Commissioner. So how that would work, and we've done this before when we had folks from the guy who was from Bornstein's who went down to Lincoln County and then came back. How that works is when we can, if that contract tracer in Multnomah County can elicit the response about where they were to the best degree that they can remember, if it was a hotel or a restaurant or whatever it may be, they're going to give us at least the facility's name, and then they'll transfer that information to us, and then we're the ones who have to follow up.
But my concern is that the person who has tested positive might not even remember the names of the places where they were.
That is true.
I think
I don't know what else to tell you, but that's the case. And like I said, you have to have two things to be a contract tracer, or what we hope that they can remember is have a good memory and be honest. And if they can do those two things, contact tracing is successful. If either one of those things is not being well done, then contact tracing is not successful.
But that's not the contract tracer's fault.
No.
That's the victim's fault. Okay, as I say, that's just the part of this. It's the retail part of this that I'm most concerned about.
Absolutely. And it's difficult because, people who come down here for day tripping, they're trying to have fun. And are they going to remember who they had contact with for every 15 minutes? I don't think so. So that's the risk that we're going to take if they go back and now they have COVID and, and they've exposed a whole bunch of people. We may never know who they all exposed, who they exposed it to. We may just never know.
Right.
County Manager Boone, we have thank you, Dr. McNichol and Commissioner Webb. We have a comment on the chat. I wonder, County Manager, if you could speak to the breakdown of percentages on the short-term rentals. The comment is, to keep it simple, how about occupancy of 9 or less be 6 guests, 10 plus be 6%, just an idea. That's Arnie and Malaya. Is there anything that you want to say about how we decided that?
So sure. So right now, the way that it is written, and it's in the attachment, and there's a table, is that if the maximum occupancy is 5 or less, then you can have 5 folks. 5 meaning you can have the maximum occupancy. If it's a rental that has a max of 4, then you can have 4. And then if it's 6 to 8 max, then that is still 5, and that actually gives those that have 6 occupancy a little bit more headroom, because 6 is still not, if you apply 60% to 6, it's still not very many. So 6 to 8 maximum occupancy would be 5 max, and then 9 or more would be the 60%. And again, that's just based upon conversations about trying to be as equitable and to give these rentals some flexibility, because applying the straight 60% would have been difficult. So, I think this is our effort to try to find some of that middle ground.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Commissioner Thompson, I see that, and so just before you start, Commissioner Thompson, I just want the other commissioners to know that I do not see you on my screen. So I see Commissioner Thompson. So we'll let Commissioner Thompson go next, but if someone else has comments, if Teresa could let me know, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. The governor talks about face coverings, talks about masks. When I go to the grocery store, the Little Apple in Manzanita, by golly, nobody gets inside the door without a mask on, and they have disposable plastic gloves. And so they're eyeballing. Everybody who comes in follows that rule. Brian Owens said about businesses in Seaside, if there's adequate signage and reminders and masks on the employees, it helps to do that. I think, to speak to Commissioner Webb's concern and my concern, and I'm sure others, to what extent can we encourage adherence to the governor's recommended procedure of masking and social distancing?
Well, it's something that the city managers and specifically Cannon Beach reached out to us recently, because they are experiencing folks that aren't social distancing and are not wearing masks. And I know that the chamber and others have been working on some materials, Travel Oregon, I think, as well. And that's something that our JIC, which is our Joint Information Center, which is representatives of the city and the county, are also going to be talking about, is how do we just reinforce some of those messages. But as we know, when we were messaging for folks not to be day tripping here a month ago, even our best efforts on messaging don't always play out in terms of favorable results. And so we're going to continually do that. We're going to model good behavior, hopefully, and have as much positive impact as we can. But it's going to be a challenge.
So then the follow-up question becomes, to what extent can we offer masks either to businesses or to run-of-the-mill public people? If we had them and offered them, perhaps that would help with compliance. I don't know if that's a possibility.
Well, I think that our focus on the masks have been for first responders and all of our key service providers like long-term care facilities. I know that that the supply chain has been opening up a bit, and you see a lot of masks out there in all kinds of varieties and shapes and sizes and colors. And so, I think that that's something that businesses will probably consider, and it's something that we can, as we move forward, and not focusing alone on our first responder and key partner PPE requirements.
Commissioner Webb has a question.
Commissioner
Okay.
Webb?
Well, two issues relating to that. I asked Lindsay Davis from Extension to give me a status report by today about the PPE that they were distributing at the fairgrounds. So that I was hoping that we would then be able to make some kind of judgments about where the rest of what was left, how that could be distributed. But I haven't heard from her yet, so it might even, Don, you might even want to call her or, something to find out, because this was a huge amount.
Yeah, we have staff, Vincent from Emergency Management, who has been liaisoning with Lindsay, and so we will find out.
Good. The other issue that that we have talked about actually in our tourism work is that could we could we make some signs that retailers could, or business owners could simply download and use in their windows?
Yes, and those ideas are being discussed right now.
Okay, because I think that would be very helpful. That way it would have the message that we want to get out, and the business owner wouldn't have to do any work to get it.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, thank you. So any other questions?
Commissioner Nebeker has one.
Commissioner Nebeker? Thank you, Commissioner Thompson.
Thank you. I don't have a question, but I agree with Commissioner Webb. Education, and I know that's what the staff is looking at, but education is really important. And I know that there will be people who will not comply, but I think getting whatever information in a unified manner to businesses and people is the best way, because the way we've gone with the whole country, it's become almost every person for themselves, and that's not a good way. But I think that having a unified message, and if signage can help with that, I totally support it.
I agree, and need be any kind of printing, let's use local printers if that's possible. So, and I know my conversation with Lindsay Davis is that there was some anticipation there would be remaining supplies, and hopefully we will be able to get those distributed to small businesses that are in need. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's move to the motion, which would be, excuse me, County Manager, do we need to distinguish between the emergency order number 2, or is that understood? I guess I can ask the commissioners also. There was a kind of a modification to address the short-term rentals. Are there any concerns about that among the commissioners? So the latest updated version. Commissioner Webb. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Webb?
I am, we have gotten so many emails, and I've gotten several phone calls from people who are a little concerned about the short-term rental numbers being proposed. And I think part of it for me is that in this chart, I think it's a little bit confusing about maybe it's just, I don't know. I mean, I love matrices, but I think this arguing over should it be 5 or 6 or 8, it may seem like a small thing to us, but to the short-term rental owner, I think it's a big issue. I really do. And I think that the 5 or fewer, I think it's a very low threshold. I really do. Or excuse me, maybe a very high threshold. And I would, for one, would just like us to say, the difference between 6 and 8 to me is almost, it's just not that consequential for anyone but the owner of that unit. So why can't we say up to 8 people, you can have 100% occupancy, and above 8 people, you have to go to 60%. I just think I just think that the 6 to 8 is just more confusing, and you know, I think that I wish, and maybe we do, but do we have any feel for how many? You told us yesterday how many units we have. Excuse me, I think properties was what you said. We know how many of those we have. Do we know how many units each of those properties, what their occupancy is? I see Monica with her hand up.
Well, I just want to state that that number that was provided yesterday was a request of the unincorporated area. And so this is kind of a group effort between the cities of Gerhart, Warrenton, Astoria, and the unincorporated areas. So that number is only for the unincorporated area. And no, we do not know the room number or the occupancy amount of each of those rental units.
Okay.
Well, what I would say is I believe Gerhart does, because of how they regulate their short-term rentals. They know what the occupancy rate is, but generally we don't know on the county side. There was, I believe, 950 short-term rental units countywide. And so we don't have a breakdown just between Warrenton, Gerhart, Astoria, and the unincorporated area, but it's a significant number. So
Commissioner Aquila has a comment.
Thank you. Yeah, I know how long the county manager, county staff has been working on this and crafting this and developing this plan. And they've been working in cooperation, participation with Mayor Brown from Gerhart, Mayor Balanciefer from Warrenton, Mayor Jones from Astoria. Everybody's been working together on this for a long time. And I appreciate David Reed being here as well, at Chambers of Commerce. They've had to really look at these numbers, and this was an accommodation to allow for the smaller homes to be able to rent them out. I mean, they basically would have been eliminated from being able to participate in phase 2 had this accommodation not be made. I think they've worked pretty hard over these numbers, and I support kind of the tiered approach that they've put together. And I'm ready to make a motion if we're at that point.
Thank you, Commissioner Aquila.
Can I make a motion?
Just a moment. County Manager, do you think there is a difference of what Commissioner Webb was saying about between 6 and 8? And also, Monica, I'm sorry, that this is for the unincorporated areas. And if perchance, I mean, I know that the cities are going to be following. Is this going to be uniform among the county and on all the cities? Okay.
yeah, so what the goal is to have all of us approach it within the same framework.
Well, I know that a lot of work has gone into this, and I know there's been a lot of meetings, intergovernmental meetings, and I guess I would support the work that's being done. So has been done, I should say.
Can
Does anybody else have any other comments?
Well, I have a question. Are Seaside and Cannon Beach going to be a part of this?
No.
No.
Okay, so it isn't countywide. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner, any other comments? Commissioner Quayla, would you like to make the motion?
Not.
Commissioner Quila, I think you have bad connection right now.
Yeah, I would move to adopt the resolution approving emergency order number 2 with the modified Exhibit A that includes the tiered approach to short-term rental. Okay.
Thank you. Oh. Looks like we lost him, but I heard the motion.
Can you repeat the motion for us, Teresa?
He said adopt the resolution approving emergency order A with the modified Exhibit A.
Emergency order number 2.
Emergency order number 2, excuse me. With the modified Exhibit A with the tiered approach.
That includes a tiered approach to short-term rental occupancy.
To the short-term rental occupancy.
Do we need to have the wording about opening, lodging, and camping
You want me to
along
do
with
it
the
again?
motion?
The short-term rental
that-
occupancy.
I think that the motion's fine.
Okay. Do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion, Thompson.
Okay. Any discussion?
I would like to hear the motion again since it was breaking up.
The motion is adopt the resolution approving emergency order number 2 with the modified Exhibit A to the tiered approach for short-term rental occupancy.
Thank you.
I would like to, I guess I would like to amend that motion to include to open lodging and camping. Because I think that wording is not in that motion, and that's.
Well, that's included in the exhibit and in the resolution.
Okay, so I see Joanna nodding her head, so that's not necessary. Okay, I will withdraw my amendment. Okay, Teresa, may we have the roll call, please?
Yes, Commissioner Quila? Commissioner Quila, if you just shake your head, yes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Nebaker?
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson?
Aye.
Commissioner Webb?
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Aye.
Chair Sullivan?
Yes, I understand. Thank you. So the motion passes, and we have adopted the emergency order number 2, and adopting the, I don't have it in front of me, so that motion is passed. Any other comments? Any other thing good for the order? Commissioner Thompson.
Well, we didn't have discussion before we voted. I really appreciate that this may not be perfect. It may not fit everybody, but to echo the point raised by Commissioner Quila, a lot of people have worked long and hard on it. It seems to be good enough to get the job done, and we'll hope that it has the effect we're looking for, which is to keep businesses open and surviving well enough to carry on and keeping people healthy as well. So thanks to all those who did that good work.
Thank you, Commissioner Thompson. Anyone else? Okay, thank you all for being here today. This meeting's adjourned.